Gov2O as protector. Some of us who have worked supporting agencies in the protector category have a few cultural touchstones. We're all used to dropping your cell phones at the door, holding a button down while you're talking on the phone until your fingers hurt, and strobing red police lights when an uncleared person is in the area. Not once in my years in SCIFs did I see a beanbag chair or foosball table. 12 years ago, I waited 2 months for my computer mouse to pass Tempest testing to make sure that it wasn't sending compromising emissions. I won't explain that reference much further, but I think you know who you are. It's an interesting workplace, and it drives a certain culture and work style. Compartmentalization is a virtue. It's also the law in most cases. Even those who work outside these gentle, humane workplaces wrestle with things like privacy issues, bandwidth limitations, and absurd budgets. And in fact, I think we all have advanced degrees in barrier management. Better to get forgiveness than to ask permission is our slogan. So speaking for myself, raised as I was as a lapsed Irish Catholic from New York, whining came naturally. I had no problem with it. I fit in nicely. But I think we should start to fix it today. So I want to challenge our esteemed panel here to go beyond barrier and speed bump identification, and would like to hear what you think should be done to clear barriers you've identified in the things you've tried to do here. If you could grab the ear of the CTO, for example, what steps need to be taken by that office to clear hurdles and dig up the speed bumps? They've already looking to revisit policies on website cookies to enable a more personalized web experience. What else needs to be done? And let's go down the road.
I think, speaking from an experience that we're having currently, I think one of the ways to get rid of the barriers is to really get a lot of buy-in from the people that are involved. If you show them the value of this, of Web 2.0 and social media, it really starts to open people's eyes. As a result, we're starting a social media council at the FDA, where we're getting people from across the agency to get together that have an interest and an experience with Web 2.0 and social media to really help drive that. So I think education and an understanding of what this is about really helps to reduce some of the barriers.
Well, in the Utah Department of Public Safety, I deal with a lot of veteran and old snobby cops that absolutely hate the media. So leadership and education has been huge in our department. We have a leader and leaders that are open, that are transparent, and that's probably been one of the biggest things that we've enjoyed in the Department of Public Safety. Also education, going out throughout the department and educating those folks about what Facebook is, about what YouTube does for us and our department, and making us look better and giving us a better name. Therein we can obviously have better relations with the media as well. So I'd have to say leadership and education has been huge.
In the military DoD space, it seems that there's a ground war right now between the public affairs folks and the IT folks. One week, IT will ban it for the Marines. The next week, PA will have a special feature on social media in the military on defense.gov. So we are in a challenging space in that way because DoD has not come up with its final policy guidance on what we are doing. If I was to talk to a CTO, however, I think that the point that I'd want to put in place is that managing social media is not an IT problem, it's a human resources and managerial problem. That lost time at work because people are on Facebook is because you're not managing your people. It's not because they're accessing Facebook. There are a lot of valid reasons for using social media. And within our military health space, we not only are focused on our soldiers and our service members, but also on our families and loved ones and beneficiaries who, in addition, so we have to be present on all those spaces. And we luckily have buy-in from our leadership in the strategic communications section to go out there and do what we need to do.
So I'm actually working about 60 hours a week on the policy for Web 2.0 for the Department of Defense, so partially that's my fault. We're actually going to be...
You two can talk amongst yourselves. We'd be great.
We're putting out a policy on internet-based capabilities. It'll be a directive-type memorandum. It'll go into coordination at the end of this month. There's a whole lot of folks working on it. I know Mr. Wintergren is coming to the summit. He's really the guy to bring that up. But in terms of talking to the CTO, we all had an opportunity to do that with the whole open government discussion. And barriers for what I've done with Techipedia, Paperwork Reduction Act, records management policies, public affairs policies, privacy and a two-way government, and IA policies. And unfortunately, trying to get the external part that was supposed to go live last October or September, we had all these barriers to work. I ended up becoming an expert on some of these. I gave incredibly detailed guidance on fixing the Paperwork Reduction Act. It's on the discussion. I think NextGov just wrote about my post on there just last week, in fact. But this notion of moving to a two-way government, our policies just aren't set up for that. And so part of it is at the federal level, but part of it is at the departmental level. So something as simple as having this external conversation between government and industry. Do the government folks need public affairs to review their comments? Right? If you say everything on the public website is supposed to be official DOD position, that's very different than if we say, well, really what this is a face-to-face meeting that happens online or in perpetuity. It is not authoritative, it's merely deliberative, and that means a whole set of rules shouldn't apply. So we've been working on those in detail.
As a Catholic Irish New Yorker whiner myself, the one thing that I will say, and I'm not a technical person, and I say this about my technical team with all due respect and with love, but the propeller heads need to come out of the basement of the science building and become integral members of our team. When you can pair up your IT people with your communications people, it's not two different meetings about what public relations and what public affairs wants to do, and then on Thursday what IT saying you can't do. The IT people need to be part of your team, and they need to have ownership in what we're doing and our communications, because then magically they're excited and they're emotional and they're part of the team. And once they've got some of that ownership, they're on board with helping you find the way to integrate Facebook or integrate YouTube or integrate any social media or any communications aspect of your program. So I think when we can get the IT folks out of the basement of the science building and on our teams and sitting next to us at the table, then I think we can move forward.
Following up on the basement of the science building, which is a little too familiar personally, where should they go? Where should the integration point be? Because we talked about IT portfolio management should involve operations, should involve security. Who has the ball? Where does this integration come together?
My ideas, I just come up with the ideas. I don't implement them.
Okay, well, that's good. Let's move on then.
No, seriously, I think I'm at the ground level. I mean, get all the IT people know how to do this stuff. It's the IT boss that decides whether or not it'll get done. So let the IT people then communicate back to the CIO or the CTO and say, hey, you know, public affairs or human resources or recruiting, you know, has come up with this idea, and as the subject matter expert from an IT standpoint, this is how I think we can implement their need. And that CTO or that CIO is probably going to say, that's my propeller head proposing that. Maybe I'll go along with that. At least that's pie in the sky, what I think.
We're getting a lot of good Twitter comments. Utah.gov is getting a lot of hits right now, I predict. One question that came across from Twitter was, are any third-party applications being developed on top of this platform?
That's a good question for the propeller heads. I just come up with the
Who
ideas.
couldn't join us? Okay.
I'm not exactly sure.
Not a problem. Noel, you are apparently dismantling the military-industrial complex. I would like to thank you for that on behalf of almost nobody in this room. Is there any thought or path to work with non-DoD agencies?
Yeah, actually there's a discussion, and again, this is still ongoing. The internal site of DoD Techipedia is available to all federal employees now and DoD contractors. There's discussions with the folks up at the CTO office of the White House is, should the external piece be DoD only or should it be government-wide? And so there's no decision on that, but it could easily turn into a techipedia.gov type of thing, because really most of the technologies we're talking about and dealing with small innovative companies, you know, State Department deals with it, and more importantly, say we work energy issues. Wouldn't it be great if we can get the Department of Energy scientists working with our folks and the guys in DHS and all of that? So, but that hasn't been decided. It's really a question of how you do the funding. I think the first step is going to be DoD Techipedia, you know, on the external part, probably part of DefenseSolutions.gov, but certainly the thought is to make it as easy as possible for small and innovative companies to get their stuff in front of us. Literally give them web space, allow them to edit this state of the practice technology and say, here's what I've got.
We have a lot of response back to the DoD social media policy versus how we're trying to use social media. So, and one observation is that it may be more HR than IT. There's other people in the basement besides the IT guys, I think. Dan, you've been in government apparently since December.
Yes.
So I have a quick personal question, and that is your soul fully sucked yet, or?
Well, did I mention I was a government contractor for 15 plus years before
that might
then?
have
So,
I was going to ask you what has surprised you so far from the position you've been in.
well, what surprised me, that's a good question. As a contractor, I worked a lot with government clients, a lot with health and human services clients, so nothing really surprised me, sort of, because I've been in the inside and I've seen how things work. I was surprised to see sort of how much the government is embracing Web 2.0 and social media, in the sense that I didn't see a lot of that happening when I was a contractor, but being in the inside, there's a lot of will to really make this happen. There are barriers, as you mentioned, but I think that that everybody wants this to happen. They see it as the future, they understand it, but they're just trying to figure out just how to get through all the different hurdles to make it happen.
And that's part of the question for the CTO, as kind of the flag holder for this sort of thing. What could he be doing from the advocacy position to get at some of those things? A question that Lewis sent, he didn't want to be forgotten back there. This category, government as protector, it probably represents government at its most monopolistic, by definition, by need. There's no true competitors for the services at the national or state level, maybe local with a private security firm. Does that make a positive or negative difference? I mean, do you think government would improve if it had some competition, or does the performance suffer for the lack of that? And I'll start at the end and come back.
Actually, we have competitors in the commercial space that provide vessel tracking for a fee as part of what they call fleet management suite. So in addition to tracking a ship, these companies also can give you, information on the training for your particular crews and things. And as those started to evolve, we partnered with them. So now they send us the vessel position information, and then we're the central hub for that. So we immediately, once I saw that the commercial space was emerging and that it potentially could be a competitor, we reached out to them and partnered with them so that they'll share the information with us at no cost, and then we distribute that information to international rescue authorities.
I'm sort of a big believer in Tim O'Reilly's idea of government as a platform that folks can innovate off of it. I don't see it as a competition as much as really how do we engage this two-way conversation with whatever the stakeholders that we need to do, be they intra-government or government to citizens or government to whichever branch. So I think everybody has a piece of that. It's just a matter of figuring out the idea you're trying to address first, and if it just so happens to be a wiki that it solves it, terrific. If it's something else, geotagging, great.
At least in the health area where we're working, obviously we have to partner with a lot of outside organizations. One of the things that we try not to do is reinvent the wheel when it comes to resources. Not only are we talking about with outside sources, but also internal sources, that there are a lot of programs within the DoD that people that are doing the same thing in a lot of different ways. So one thing that we try to do is bring all those resources together so that our stakeholders can have access to all of them. There are 4 or 5 different suicide prevention, prevention programs throughout the services, which is great, and each of them are focused, but we can also then provide one place where everyone can find all of those resources.
I think at least in the state of Utah and in our position, it's somewhat difficult. I think competition makes things better. I think it improves products and so on and so forth. However, at least with the Utah Department of Public Safety, we don't exactly have the biggest pie of the budget. So when competition comes around, costs might go up, and we may not be able to create some of the things that we've created where there's no competition. We have collaborated with such companies as Utah Interactive, as well as the Department of Public Safety, our DTS folks, and had some of these meetings that we've talked about, and be able to bring this idea to fruition, so to speak, and have it here. So I think it can be good and bad at the same time for us who don't have money.
To echo what Noel and Don said, we don't see it as competition, at least. I mean, in the public health field, we want to encourage partnership and get our information out to as many different people as possible. FDA is part of Health and Human Services. We're working very closely with them. They have a social media center that they're bringing together, Centers for Disease Control, FDA, NIH, all the other players in HHS, and really in a collaborative environment, trying to work together not to reinvent the wheel, to take our data, make it open, allow other third parties to come up with creative ideas. So less competition, more partnership and collaboration.
Thanks. For the AMVER effort, a question. We had an airliner go down kind of gently in the Hudson a few months ago, you might remember. And we all saw the ferries kind of self-organize. And there was a question afterwards, how do they know to do that? And since they've actually done that several times, formed a raft for someone overboard, that sort of thing. And what struck me listening to your presentation is the information is still flowing to rescue centers. Is there a thought to provide that information also out to civilian craft for more of a swarm effect for some rescue operations? Maybe the river's not a good example, but is there any idea in that sense? Or?
There's an application called AIS that's on board each large commercial ship. So if we're talking blue water, open ocean type of search and rescue, AIS is automatic identification system is used primarily as an anti-collision application, but then it's also used, the master, the skipper on board a ship can see what other vessels are around, are in his vicinity. And from a search and rescue standpoint, most good ship skippers will turn that application on when they're at sea involved in a search and rescue operation so that they can see what other resources may be close and closing in on that particular incident.
So they can receive data.
Correct.
Good. Excellent. Utah, I can't let you go. You're in D.C., and I've got to ask you, how successfully have you been connecting across the rest of Utah government services? And because we're standing where we are, how have you found the openness connecting up to your federal counterparts?
Federals, we're always working with our partners in the federal government. We work a lot with FEMA and the Department of Public Safety, and things are moving in the right direction. I don't think we're where we want to be right now. But as far as on a statewide basis, we have a lot of great services on utah.gov and provide those for our citizens. What we're trying to do is be transparent and take us to them versus them come to us, because we have a lot of rural areas in the state of Utah. So with that being said, I think it's going extremely well statewide, but we're still working on some things federally.
Excellent. Thanks, appreciate it. Open it up to the floor for the running microphones. Anyone out there? I caught you off guard. I apologize. Anyone? It's impossible to see. There's a hand up over here. There's hands in the back. Those of you out can't see what I'm looking at is a 20-foot high clock that I'm definitely paying attention to. Get your attention. Just when the microphone gets there, go ahead and start.
Hi, Maylin Fung from the Tech Museum of Innovation, Silicon Valley.
Hi.
With all these different issues cutting across so many public agencies, is there a thought of having a social media ombudsman?
Social media ombudsman.
I think Price Floyd in the new PDASD in public affairs for DOD is probably close to that. I think he's more refers to himself as a social media czar, which, you know, not an ombudsman, but I think it's certainly a start for us.
We have a working group which we have in place. It's not a specific person, but we do have a central for the military health system which has many components. We have one group where everyone can come together and air their issues and problems so that which can help everyone move forward.
And as I mentioned, we have a social media council that is forming. It's in the process of being formed. And that's designed to listen to internal as well as external advice regarding Web 2 on social media.
The Coast Guard Office of Public Affairs also has its own social media department now as well to look at and review issues of social media. But
if the ombudsman lives in public affairs, we've seen the tension between that and the security in the IT houses. Should it be in a different place? Let's blue sky this. Where would you put it?
We're still evolving.
Excellent. Still evolving. It's one of our buzzwords. Question here?
Hi, my name is Noel from the New York State Senate. So this question goes out to Jeff, Donald, and Noel. It's great to see that there's a Noel up on the panel. It's a very unique name. So my question primarily focuses around, you were the three that gave really great demonstrations on UI, or at least graphics that talk about branding and design, and utah.gov, many hats off to you. It seems like you guys have spent a lot of time focusing on that. Where is within the workflow, the conceptual of building these sites, the importance? Like, why did all of a sudden you three find the importance of focusing on graphic design and user interface?
I think that part of, we, as I said, that we have kind of an integrated team. So as part of our outreach team, we also produce other materials. And part of what we were asked to do by the Director of Strategic Communications was to develop branding around that. And so we were able to kind of take that and run with it, provided, and we are also taking that integration further because we have a new health.mil coming out in 2010, which is also, for myself, I've kind of had I'm one of those many hat people that have some design, some tech, some social media, all that stuff. So for myself, in the ways that I can guide what we do, I've always found it to be very important that good usability is what brings people to be using a site. So at least in terms of our overall team, those are the kind of philosophies that guide what we do.
With the state of Utah.gov, I think probably one of the most important thing is, as I'm sure you're all aware, we used to have Governor Mike Leavitt, who's the ex-health secretary, I believe, and also John Huntsman, who has now moved on to greener pastures in China. But anyway, they're all very open, and they're all very into this social idea of social media and being open and being transparent. So I guess the best way to describe it, at least in Utah, it's kind of been in our blood for the last 10 or so years. So I think we've been evolving every year and getting better and better at it, and that's why I think where we are today. So it's more of a philosophy in leadership.
I'm more interested in formative usability studies and the overall user experience probably than the branding. That said, we have some terrific graphic artists on our team who, like Janita Williams in our office came up with the logo and had, a different version for the external one, which will have sort of blue thing, the internal, which is green, and then the classified, which is red. So it tells you, one of the concerns we had is if we're trying to get government folks to participate internally and externally, there's certain conversations we have internally that you wouldn't want to have externally. So we put the sites on different servers, and we wanted to have a completely different, inside is green, external is going to be blue. So, from that perspective, from user experience, we didn't want any, for official use only stuff out there. So that was pretty critical.
Yes, we know the FOUL never gets out in the internet. We have one quick question. Time for one more quick one. Back over here. Oh, sorry, you got one right there, please.
Hello. Just a question for everyone. Regarding what you said before about where the tech should be integrated, I guess my question would be, do you see kind of the future of this whole government and tech merging to be necessarily people working with tech guys more closely, or kind of bringing in more people who have experience in both government and tech and sort of a more liberal arts background who are capable of participating in both discussions?
I'll start, I guess. I think the answer to that is yes to both. I was brought in December. I have a tech background. I used to manage a whole internet development team doing communications and tech. I'm in the communications department currently to bridge that gap. But we also are trying to bring in people who are active social media users, who really understand it, who really get it. So I think we're trying to do both. We're trying to bring along the IT folks and bring in people who can help to grow our use of this technology.
And I think we have to move on to our voting at this point. I want to make sure people don't forget to text. There's a slide up there. It is. Text your vote. These fine people, American Idol style. You have a minute to set that up.
Does that make you Ryan Seacrest?
Ryan Seacrest. Yeah, I only wish. You can vote more than once. I think there was a question back there. Just keep doing it. So those of you on the war dialers will be fine.
Standard text rates apply.
Standard text applies. Exactly. Okay?
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.